Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my ranking of Doctor Who Season 2. So here we are ranking the 9 Doctor Who Season 2 stories, which are Planet of Giants, The Dalek Invasion of Earth, The Rescue, The Romans, The Web Planet, The Crusade, The Space Museum, The Chase, and The Time Meddler. And let me say that while Season 1 felt pretty, well, not samey in terms of story, but from start to finish, it felt like it's the same. It's the same season. It's has been since the start. Everyone and everything's still there at start to end. Season 2 feels a pretty different season at the end than it does from the start, as opposed to Season 1. Season 1 has its differences between start and end, but I guess because all the same characters are still there, it feels similar, plus the fact that you've got this mix of historical and sci-fi stories. While Season 2, it does have that mix, but I think there's a bit more sense on the edge on the sci-fi and the fantasy stories as opposed to the historicals. There's only really 3 pure historicals, plus a pseudo-historic, well, 2 pure historicals, a pseudo-historical, that's the Time Meddler. The first pseudo-historical, as it's got the monk in it. Plus also everything that featured in The Chase, the back in time stuff in The Chase. As well as the forward in time stuff as well. And then you've got the fantasy stuff like Planet of Giants, and the sci-fi Dalek Invasion of Earth, Chase, Web Planet, Space Museum. Web Planet could also be a bit fantasy as well, I suppose. Maybe Time Meddler with the monk as well. And The Rescue, that's a sci-fi fantasy one as well, I suppose. Well, Planet, certainly it's mostly a sci-fi series and not so much emphasis on the historical. So that feels different. And companions come and go this series, but it's not going to be as bad as next season. Next series is going to feel very, very different start to finish. But the season starts off with Susan, Ian and Barbara, and then Susan goes in the second story, Ian and Barbara go in the penultimate, Vicky joins in the third story, and Stephen in the penultimate, and those are the 2 who stick around for the end. So, yeah. So, it feels a bit different to when it started, continuing the 4 main characters from the previous season on their adventures through time and space at the start to 2 different people at the end, and feeling a bit more like Doctor Who as it's going to build later on in its existence. So, yeah, Season 2 feels a lot different to Season 1. And for a while I thought it was my favourite William Hartnell series. We're going to have to see how Season 3 fares, but Season 2, after rewatching it, I think the middle kind of suffers. The Romans and the Web Planet and the Space Museum kind of not that great. Web Planet was a disappointing rewatch after I thought it was a good story, but guess not. The Crusade, on the other hand, kind of improved on the rewatch, as did The Rescue. However, the bookending 2 and the 2 at the start and the 2 at the end managed to bookend the season spectacularly. It's a shame it's kind of a mediocre in between, with some exceptions. So, I'm going to decipher these stories today, see how they all rank in the ranking. Starting with, as ever, with number 9, the weakest story, and in the last ranking, number 8, the lowest story, was The Reign of Terror, and I mentioned that was going to be my least favourite Hartnell story, for the time being, at least. Well, it's just been rebeaten by the story that was previously my least favourite of all time, and whilst it's not that anymore, it is still currently my least favourite Hartnell story, and it might stay that way. We'll see what happens next season and at the start of season 4, but for season 2, and also featuring season 1, it's my least favourite season 2, and currently the least favourite Hartnell story out of the first 2 seasons, and the first 17 stories. And that is The Romans. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this story. I didn't rant about it in the review, but I wasn't exactly very positive. It was it wasn't so good. I don't really want to talk about these stories much now because I don't want to have too much. Don't want to have a long ranking. I've already spent quite a lot of time in the pre-ranking bit anyway. And also I've done the reviews already so you can go and hear some more my actual opinions on those, especially more recent reviews like the Time Meddler. I've actually recorded that just before this ranking, so yeah. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but man, The Romans isn't that good. It's not very good. Dennis Spooner would improve with his script writing, but not with this story. It would be a later historical story. We should probably just keep him away from historicals at this point. I mean, whilst his other historical is actually good, it's obviously not his strongest field. Comedy, on the other hand, it works here for the most parts, and I think he works with comedy better than he does with a historical setting. So anyway, moving on to number 8. Number 8 is a story that isn't that much more interesting, to be honest. It's actually probably less interesting, and that is The Space Museum. The problem with this story is that whilst it has this great sci-fi mystery concept, to start with, it then puts that to the side as more of a overhanging situation for the travellers to sort out. But in the meantime, they've got to deal with these pricks and these guys who've hogged the planet, and these young band of rebels trying to take it back, and the pricks trying to put the Doctor and his companions as part of the museum. So that ties into the start. Yeah, that's not the best story. It's just I think it should have been a 2-parter. I think what it should have done is a 2-parter, and they were fighting against time rather than these pricks. And it's not even that much fun either. It's pretty dull and uninteresting, apart from some bits such as the Dalek cameos, and when the Doctor hides inside one of the Dalek casings and pretends to be a Dalek. That was a great scene. Out of the last 3 episodes, that was the best scene. Last 3 episodes, the remaining 3 episodes after the first one. And then even the first one, it even stopped for about 2 or 3 minutes just to have a look at the glass cabinets, and paused for a few more minutes after that, just so time could catch up. So, yeah, Space Museum. Number 7. Now, number 7, this story I originally had higher up on my personal list before the rewatch. However, afterwards, it wasn't interesting, at least not as much as I thought it was. It wasn't as interesting or as fun as I used to think it was, and I think maybe being a 6-parter, it might have lost the interest midway through, and it was taking its time as opposed to maybe a 4-parter. If the story was 4 parts, it might have been a bit better. I did think this story was underrated, but now it's not that great, and I will still say some people give it too much hate, but it's just not that good. It is The Web Planet. I do like this story, but only a little bit. I got pretty bored towards around the middle of the last viewing, and it did get a bit better towards the end, but not that much. And those I could describe them as fly creatures, but then I looked it up and it was worm creatures. Those worm creatures, they weren't really that much necessary to the plot, were they? They were just there. And Zarbi are pretty cool. To be honest, I could see why they became a popular monster, but without the, I think, with the forces that controlled them, but without that, they're just giant ants. Cattle, basically. On their own, at best, they're a good display for, shall we say, a space museum. But anyway, I mean, the design of that Zarbi is more impressive than the design for the worm creatures and some of the other monsters we have in this season and last season. But it's just, the story just didn't work on the second viewing, and that's a shame because I did like it a lot the first time round. So that's a shame. But one thing it can get a sense of, one good thing about the low score is that it's not the weakest story of the season. It knows it's the weakest six-parter, but considering there's only 3 of them, that's not saying much. And it can take solitude, I suppose, solace, or take solace in knowing it's nowhere near the weakest. Well, it's next to the weakest, but then whilst it is the weakest story of the season, it's not. There's 2 others that are worse, so it can take solace in that. Okay, number 6. Number 6 is basically filler, and that is The Rescue. Yeah, it's filler. The reason it's this high on the list as opposed to somewhere like the previous 3 is because it's a fun piece of filler. It's not much. There's not much story, but I had a good time with it. I thought it was okay. Certainly had more fun with it than the other stories I've just talked about. And yeah, it's a good introduction to Vicky, and the characters are sort of done well, and there is this kind of a mystery there. And yes, this works as a 2-parter. This is a good 2-parter. I don't think I would have wanted more. I think it's fine at 2 parts. I think out of all of them, I think this story gets the balance just right. And the best. And I think he handles it really well. So, that's The Rescue. Okay, we'll be passing the halfway stage in a moment with number 5, The Crusade. A surprisingly good story. As when I first watched the missing episodes and heard the audio, and then again with the reconstructions plus the surviving episodes, it wasn't a great story, but it was still good. But second viewing, it's actually very good. It's got some good moments. It's quite interesting and has some good moments. I can't say it's perfect, but it's still very good. I don't completely enjoy it, but I thought it was a better story than most of the others around this point of the season. It's great. It's good. It's very good, and yeah. I mean, there are some bad bits, like the unnecessary additional villain. This guy is just trying to find Barbara. I don't think that was necessary. And the Earl of Leicester being a prick. Again, don't need that. We don't need that. We're fine just watching them run around playing knights. Again, we don't need that. We're just fine trying to find Barbara after she's in enemy territory. That I would have preferred that kind of a quest. A quest story probably would have been better, but as it stands, it's okay. Well, actually, it's more than okay. Number 4. Now, the last 5 stories have been between 3rd and 7th in the release order. They are basic, so that basically means that the top 4 are the two start and two end bookends of the season with the 4 good episodes, very good episodes, as I've mentioned in the previous reviews. And we're starting off with my least favourite of these 4 good ones, but considering it's number 4 on the list, I still consider it very highly ranked in this season. And I think some of these stories are actually better than all of season 1 put together in something, apart from maybe Keys and Mariners, for some of them. But compared to last season, where it was a 5, a 7, 4 8s, and 2 9s. This season we've had a 4, a 5, a 6, 2 7s, and now we've got 3 9s and a 10. So, yeah, the weaker half, that's weaker than season 1, but the better half, that's stronger than season 1. So season 2 is kind of a mixed bag. So number 4 is The Time Meddler. Now, The Time Meddler, in my opinion, is Dennis Spooner's best Doctor Who work at this point in time. Of course, Master Plan is also coming up. This is solo script and not script editing, like Douglas Adams on Shada, rather than script editing Creature from the Pit. I just reviewed this story before filming this ranking, so I've already talked about it, but I can say it is a really good first pseudo-historical story, as the term is for this one, pseudo-historical, where it's got sci-fi and historical in the same place. They travel back in time, and you've got kind of aliens doing some problems in the past. And the Time Meddler is the meddling monk is a good first villain, alien villain, to be causing problems in the past. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, you could say all the historicals are pseudo-historicals with the Doctor and the TARDIS, and any non-human companions, such as Romana or K9, but if you take out the Doctor and companions from the equation, and then the Time Meddler would be the first pseudo-historical with the presence of the meddling monk. And if we were to say properly, the first story with a monster or alien, a non-humanoid monster or alien in the past, or a story that wasn't historical or partly historical, partly set in the past or set in the past with an alien or monster, then I think it might be either of the Daleks for the Victorian setting. If not, then the Abominable Snowman. Let's see, season 3. I think maybe the Chase and Master Plan. I mean, okay, maybe completely set in the past, it was probably Abominable Snowman, but partly then the Chase, I would say. So anyway, I could be wrong. There's probably another example. But anyways, Time Meddler is a whole bunch of fun. It might be a bit of a meandering in the middle, but it's still really good, really entertaining, and it's worth it just for the Doctor and the monk's interactions alone. So, yeah, The Time Meddler. Great. Dennis Spooner finally redeemed himself after the poor Reign of Terror and the shitfest that was the Romans. Number 3. Number 3 is considered by many people to not only be the best of the Hartnell era, Season 2, but one of the best of the Hartnell era full stop. And after watching it on this most recent viewing, I can safely see why. I don't consider it one of my personal favourites of the era, but I can safely say it's one of the best of the season. I mean, okay, I could probably say it's one of the best of the era. If I was to make a top 5, top 10 story ranking of Hartnell, maybe I'll do that after 10th Planet. But top 5, 10 stories, then this one will be on that list. And that is The Dalek Invasion of Earth. and that is Planet of Giants. I don't know what it is, but people seem to missing this story, apart from maybe on the Twitch live stream broadcasts. But otherwise, they keep forgetting about this story. It's underrated. It's a great story. I mean, there's not, again, like The Rescue, there isn't a huge amount there, but there's a bit more. I don't know whether it could have done 4 parts, and I can see why they edited the last 2 down into 1 and made it a 3-parter. So, yeah, I can see that. And that's also another reason why we got Mission to the Unknown. Yay. It's better than that. And I think I'm going to keep that opinion when we get to that next rewatch. But this story, like with Dalek and the Bannerman, gets so much ignorance. It keeps saying ignored or missed. But it's a underrated gem, and I would say the same for Dalek and the Bannerman. Some people might not like it due to that one's mix of tones, like in the new series, but I found it a lot of fun. I really liked it. This one just, I don't know, I think it's just I think people just don't remember it. It's Susan's penultimate story as an incumbent companion, and the season's opener, well, it would have been a mistake to open it with Invasion Earth if they were going to have Susan leave in that story, so it makes sense for something else to go before that. Plus, it aligns that story as the second story in the season is a Dalek story for the second season in a row, and it's just I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't get more attention than it deserves. I really like it. I think it's great, and I wish the rest of you could see that. Anyway, moving on to my favourite story from Season 2, number 1. Not many people would consider this the best of the season. They might like it, but they don't consider it one of the best of the season, and they wouldn't consider this one of the best of the Hartnell era. And out of these the monsters that appear in it, they would probably consider it the weakest of the Hartnell ones, or at least excluding Mission to the Unknown anyway. And of course, that is The Chase. So, those people who aren't too keen on The Chase, fair enough, but I'll let you know you are missing out a lot, because The Chase is a ton of fun. It is, okay, maybe not so much the first and the 5th episodes, and number 2 does meander, but 3, 4 and 6 are definitely worth it. And even the other 3 episodes that aren't as fun are still pretty interesting, pretty good. You get some great character stuff in the first episode. The second stuff pretty much continues to set up the situation on where the planets they're currently on. The 3rd episode, we get to see the first bit of this chase through time. The 4th episode continues that, but we get stuck in one location for a bit longer than the previous 2 stories. And the 5th episode basically takes us to the final fighting ground, and then episode 6 introduces us to a potential even deadlier foe, and a chance to escape all of them. And it's a really good structure. I really like this. I love how we don't, like with the Peter Marin's, Terry Nation has 3 and 4 be very separate places to 1, 2, 5 and 6. How each episode either moves location or moves the story along differently, and I really like that. I like having multi-part stories that don't necessarily have to be, let's say, 6 parts, all set in 22nd century London with a giant alien invasion force like Dalek Invasion of Earth. But instead you could go to different places, different time zones, and have an eventual 2 there whilst this big overlooming plot continues until you get to the very end of the story, like with Chase. And I find that really great. I suppose that's why these 2 stories, these 2 Terry Nation stories are on the top of my list, because they move the plot along every single episode. They don't just get stuck in one place throughout, or a few places for the entire story. We get to move across time and space, well, certainly this one. And I think that's the same thing's going to happen with Dalek Master Plan, and that's going to incorporate the best of both stuck in one place and going across space and time. So, yeah, Master Plan will be the best of both worlds for that, which is good because that's 12 parts as opposed to the usual 6. So, yeah. And, yeah, the chase, just bundle of fun for the most parts, especially the middle. And, yeah, really great. So that's it from my Season 2 ranking, and I'll just quickly recap. Number 9 was the Romans, number 8 was the Space Museum, number 7 was the Web Planet, number 6 was the Rescue, number 5 was the Crusade, number 4 was the Time Meddler, number 3 was the Dalek Invasion of Earth, number 2 was the Planet of Giants, and number 1 was the Chase. Planet of Giants seems to be the only story without the at the start. No wonder I got a bit muddled. I'm also going to have a quick shout-out bonus mention to Doctor Who and the Daleks. I'm going to rewatch that. It's later, hopefully, and then that's going to get its review following that. But I thought I would give it a shout-out here anyway, because it follows Season 2 and precedes Season 3. So, shout-out, honourable mention to Doctor Who and the Daleks. Not really part of this season, but I thought I'd give it a shout-out anyway. I will give the Dalek movies their own mini ranking later on. Many rankings, 2 films. So either at the end of the Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD review, or with the Dalek Mania review, or alongside the Dalek Mania review, which is the documentary, so that won't really count as a film. But yeah, the Dalek films will get their mini reviews, but at the moment I can safely say Doctor Who and the Daleks is a honourable mention for Season 2, with Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD being an honourable mention for Season 3. So that's it, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. The next Doctor Who review after Doctor Who and the Daleks will be Galaxy 4, and that will kickstart Season 3. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome once and all. Fuck me. Hear me? Number 7. Good place for a cutaway. Now, you mean? So I've just recently, and that is Planet of Giants. I don't know what it is, but people seem to forget this story. It's an underrated and underseen. I don't know what it is with people. They keep missing this